Well then, it seems that Throne of Liberty might be in a little bit of trouble. We have rumours of people changing, a mobile version, and more. So let's jump right in. Now, this is being reported by MTN, and it is originally in Korean, so everything we read has been translated automatically by Google in this case. So keep that in mind. That's why some of the phrasing will be awkward. But we have some massive news indeed, and it sounds like Throne of Liberty is going to mobile, and one of the key producers has actually changed role. Well, technically, he resigned and is still in a job, but maybe just in a lesser job, I think. So it says, it has been discovered that NCSoft has established plans to release a mobile version of TL. And now that's a little bit funny because when we had the auto-playing version, it definitely felt like it was going to be a mobile game. Then they say, although the initial performance is poor, the plan is to seek a revival like Lost Ark by seeking substance through updates. I assume that substance basically means growth, and then launching a mobile version following the overseas launch. Now, it is worth noting that there's actually two conflicting statements that they address in the article. So apparently one of the NC officials says, I know that TL will produce a mobile version, first doing its overseas launch, and then they'll work to expand the platform like Lost Ark. Now, I didn't know Lost Ark was on mobile. I'm not 100% sure that it is. Maybe they've announced a version and I just haven't seen it, but apparently they want to follow the Lost Ark methodology. It's worth noting that another official says, it is true that we are actively considering the development of a mobile version of TL, but it is not yet confirmed. It is a situation that can happen. And honestly, I don't really know what to think with that. I don't really care about it, to be honest. I'm not going to play it on mobile, and I don't think it's going to negatively impact the development of the game that is on PC and console. Well, because that game's not exactly doing very well anyway, I don't think it's going to get any worse because eventually they'll do a mobile version. You might be interested in that. I know most people aren't, and as soon as people hear mobile, they automatically tune out, which I think is fair enough because it's not why we're here. It sounds like they're really trying to make the Western version good, so let's hope they do that. I've said before that they're actually making a lot of positive changes there, and the changes that they keep making, I mostly agree with. But that doesn't mean there's no trouble, because one of the producers seems to have changed positions. The TL camp was recently reorganized with producer, now I'm going to mess this name up, An Jong-wook, resigning from his position and then placed under the captain Choi Moon-young. Now I assume captain is just the leader there, I think it's probably a mistranslation. They also say the plan is to provide the North American services through Amazon within the year, whilst also preparing to launch in East markets such as Taiwan. That last bit, by the way, will be done by NCSoft themselves, not Amazon. Now, we sort of already knew that if you've been following, because I think in a lot of the financials, they actually mentioned it. They said, we're aiming for this year, and that just makes sense. And at this point, it's pretty well known that the Throne of Liberty version was not overly well received. Yes, some people will defend it, some people still enjoy the game, but the Korean version wasn't a blazing success. It wasn't a massive success. People weren't necessarily overly enamored, and they mentioned that here. There's quite a long section, but they actually go on to talk about how changing it from lineage to TL and the name not sort of being lineage has maybe caused confusion, and that's hurt the identity of the game. They think that has some influence on Throne of Liberty's sluggish performance. I don't necessarily agree with that. I just think the Korean version of the game wasn't very good, and they're making it better. I don't think it really mattered about the name personally, but you know, maybe I'm wrong in Korea. I don't know. I'm not Korean and I don't live there. I just visit some hotels occasionally. Now, I don't really fully understand the positions that exist here, because apparently Choi Moon-young was the executive producer, and it says was in charge of the campsite. I don't know if that just means the concept of the game, maybe, not sure. And then the producer, An Jong-wook, was in charge of the actual production. Well, An Jong-wook has recently resigned, and now he apparently is under the executive director, Choi Moon-young. Without knowing who's responsible for what, I don't know if that's good news or bad. I would say that if you're resigning from your position, you probably feel like you've done a bad job. Could it be a scapegoat? Maybe. Could somebody else be the problem? Maybe. Either way, this whole thing sort of smells like a little bit of trouble to me. Some things are obviously not working as they wanted it to. There is a little bit of extra news. First, they reiterate that since the launch of the Korean version, the performance has fallen short of expectations. That's backed up by the fact that in their financials, traditionally what they would do is that they would list the profit of each game or the revenue of each game, and they very curiously seem to be missing out Throne of Liberty. And let's face it, the likely reason that that's the case is because it's not doing that well. But this next bit is pretty important. Amazon Games officials are visiting Korea this week, and they are going to discuss the collaboration ahead of the launch of the title. Now, the timing of this, to me, sort of suggests that we're not going to see this at Summer Games Fest. Now, Summer Games Fest is on the 7th of June. For me, that means that this sort of talk is either happening too late, or maybe it's about something else. It gives me the vibe that they're not ready, and that the date for launch in the West is still relatively unknown. I would not be surprised if this is either early next year, or maybe around about December, like the Korean version was. Well, actually, I sort of feel like it's going to be one of two things. It'll either be super early, straight after Summer Games Fest, maybe they just think they're ready, let's go, or I think it'll be late. I think they'll try and miss the sort of like August to November window, because that's just going to be stacked with a lot of games and you might be a little bit overshadowed. It could very easily get to next year and maybe something like February, but then it runs a risk of running into something like Chrono Odyssey or Arcade 2 or, you know, anything else. So who knows? I think the delay is definitely not helping the game with the perception, but what it is helping them do is make the game better. Unfortunately, one of the things that they've done recently is add in another example of pay to win with this like optional subscription. Not going to talk about it much here, but we'll judge that before the game actually comes out and we'll see what we actually get in the West. But again, they reiterate that it's actually planned to come within the year. So they say within the year, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up going to February. But for me, the likely option here is probably December. I can't imagine it being super soon. I think we would have heard about that if it was. Worth noting that NCSoft is preparing its own service in something like Taiwan. Don't think there's going to be more countries. They only just mentioned Taiwan, so I don't really know about that. We definitely will see. I know a lot of you guys are going to hear Throne of Liberty Mobile and be like, I told you so. But the reality is it's probably going to be quite a different game. The PC version I don't think would necessarily be very easy to port directly. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it will be. But I just know that people hear mobile and they'll be like, mobile, I'm out. And fair enough. And for the repositioning of the people, that makes sense. If it didn't have a successful launch in Korea, well then heads have rolled. And the news of it coming this year in the West, well, we sort of already knew about that, but it's nice to have confirmation. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to support me and really help the channel, then becoming a Patreon is truly the best way. There'll be a link in the description, I'm sure. Otherwise, you can come and follow me, talk to me over on Twitch. We stream 6 days a week, and you know, it's super fun. For now, have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.